Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Icing on the Skate podcast. Hello, how are you? You may be noticing that Chris up there isn't quite there. He decided not to load up early enough today, his Skype, and Skype has decided to go through a update. And he has really awful internet, so he might turn up at some point, he might not. But I'm going to start the podcast anyway, because it's time to start. And, you know, I'm a true professional, me, on the Odd Man Rush YouTube channel. So yeah, let's hail a load of abuse at Chris when he gets here. But yeah, hello, how's it going? There wasn't really a huge amount of stuff going on in the Elite Ice Hockey League this week. But we do have a few things to talk about. So we'll get on with them. I'm going to try and basically buy some time until Chris's laptop can decide to turn up. That'd be nice. So, I'm going to go through the standings of the Elite Ice Hockey League for you. Some very interesting, I say this every single week, very interesting. I don't know whether that actually has any meaning anymore on this podcast, but some very key matchups that have taken place and some very key points that have been going different places, which is which has made the league certainly very competitive for these last few weeks, and certainly this last week and for the rest of the season going forward. We've got about 14, 15 games left in the season for the majority of the teams. Only about 10 games left for the Nottingham Panthers. They're looking like they're going to be in a playoff spot, but we're not too sure. So, anyway, with first place in the Elite Ice Hockey League so far. Hello, everyone, by the way. Hope you're having a lovely day. We're still waiting on Chris. He's a disgrace. The first place in the Elite Ice Hockey League at the end of week, 22, 23... from the 11th of February, is the Cardiff Devils. The Cardiff Devils are still in first place in the Elite Ice Hockey League with a 32-7-5 record for 69 points in 44 games. They are on a one-game losing streak, but they managed to have the first place locked down by only 1 point because the Belfast Giants, who have played 45 games, they've played one more game than Cardiff in first, have 68 points with a record of 33-10-2. They are also on a one-game losing streak. So we said a couple of weeks ago, we said last week that this was Cardiff's race to lose, and at the moment they're kind of losing this race. Yeah, both teams have had a losing streak. Belfast did pick up a point in their loss yesterday to the Nottingham Panthers, so they're only 1 point back. Cardiff do have a game in hand, so they could go 3 points clear, but all it takes is for Cardiff to drop a game, and Belfast are in the running. It's going to be very tight between these two teams until the end of the regular season, that's for sure. Then in third place with 57 points, we have the Nottingham Panthers, who have played 49 games and have a record of 24-16-9. They're not going to be staying in third place for much longer. You'll see why in a moment. I think they'll drop to fourth. They may drop to fifth, dependent on how the rest of the teams play. Nottingham have played the most games so far this season. They are on a one-game winning streak. They have had a tough stretch of hockey since Rick Schernerman's left. But they did get the win against Belfast last night. Then in fourth place with 44 games played, a record of 26-14-4 for 56 points is the Glasgow Clan. So Glasgow, with 5 games in hand, are only 1 point back from the Nottingham Panthers, who are in third place. So they have a potential 10 points to gain. They could reach the sort of points that Cardiff and Belfast have at the moment, but of course they don't have any games in hand on Belfast or Cardiff. 1 game in hand on Belfast, but same amount of games played as Cardiff. So Glasgow, they're looking like they could finish in the top 3 to finish this season, which is crazy. They had a pretty slow start to the season this year, did Glasgow, but they've really picked it up in the second half. They've had a fantastic job of it recently. Then in fifth place. In fifth place in the league with 43 games played, which is the least games played so far, tied the least games played of any team in the league at the moment, with a record of 22-16-5 for 49 points, is the Fife Flyers. So they are on a 2-game winning streak. Glasgow are on a 3-game winning streak, just in case you're wondering. Thank you very much, Andy. Appreciate it, dude. The Fife Flyers, they have 49 points in 43 games. They've started off the season really well, but they've kind of come back down to earth recently. They've been going sort of a 500 team over these last few weeks, and that's dropped them into 5th place in the league. 6th place in the league, we have the Guildford Flames. 47 games played, 22-20-5 for 49 points as well. So Guildford have played 4 more games than Fife, and they're tied in points. So Guildford, they're going to have to keep pushing for this playoff berth. You'll see why in a moment. The The race for the playoffs is really heating up at the moment. Then in, what was it, 2, 4, 6, 7th place, we have the Sheffield Steelers, who are on a 2-game winning streak, 23, 22, and 2 for 47 points in 48 games. So a 2-game winning streak, which is awesome for them. The Sheffield Steelers finally starting to find a little bit of form, which is something they've been lacking for the entirety of the season. So the Sheffield Steelers in 7th, they've played 47 games as well, so they have played the same amount of Guildford, but Guildford have 1 more point, so that secures them at least that place at the moment. But then in 8th, the final playoff spot of the Elite Ice Hockey League at the moment is the Dundee Stars. 45 games played, a 17, 16 and 12 record. Yes, the Dundee Stars have lost 12 games in overtime or shootout, and that's 3 more than any other team in the Elite Ice Hockey League. Second place, the Nottingham Panthers, who have played 4 more games than them. So Dundee, those extra 12 points that they've picked up have really been the difference between them being a basement team and them being in playoff contention. They have 46 points in 45 games. They're on a 4-game losing streak though, so stuff really isn't working out too well for the Dundee Stars at the moment, but those extra points is going really well for them. Then, outside of the playoffs, but not that far off, I might add, first off, we have the Manchester Storm, who in 46 games have a record of 20, 21 and 5 for 45 points on the season. They're on a 3-game losing streak as well, but they are only 1 point out of the playoffs. Then in 10th place, we have the Coventry Blaze, who have 43 points in 43 games. Basically the epitome of a 500 team. 18, 18 and 7 so far on the season. And then last but not least, we have the Milton Keynes Lightning with a 12, 29 and 4 record for 28 points in 45 games. Finally snapped their 10-game losing streak at the end of the weekend, which is great, especially for MK fans. I think they've been longing for a win for like the last 3... It's probably been about a month since the Milton Keynes Lightning last won a game, which is demoralising as anything. But the fact that they managed to finally break that is awesome. So, just to give you a bit of context here, between the Fife Flyers in 5th and the Coventry Blaze in 10th, there is only 6 points separating them, which is absolutely mental. 6 points separating 5th place to 10th place. So it really still is anybody's game. And 10th place Coventry, they're 3 points back from a playoff spot. They've played 43 games. They're tied for the Fife Flyers with the least amount of games played in this season so far, which is crazy. Absolutely crazy. So, in terms of goals for, I believe the Belfast Giants, the Belfast Giants have scored the most goals out of any team at the moment, with 181, second place being the Cardiff Devils with 176, and the Belfast Giants and the Cardiff Devils are both tied for goals against. Both have 113 goals against for either side. So the goals for against average just about squeaking out in Belfast's favour. However, they have played 1 more game. And with penalty minutes, it's the Nottingham Panthers leading. No, it's not. It's the Manchester Storm leading in penalty minutes with almost 1,000 penalty minutes this season. They've got 989 on the season so far, which is wonderful. I mean, it's not for them because they're out of the playoffs, but you know what I mean. So those are the standings for the Elite Ice Hockey League. I've managed to vamp for what, the last 10 minutes or so. So I feel like I'm doing my end of the bargain, you know? Something else crazy in the SHL at the moment, after 39 games, it's a 10-point difference from 1st to 10th place, the 3-point wins. Wow, that's crazy. So yeah, I can see all your comments, guys. Haven't really looked at them recently, but yeah, I have got them there. So if you have anything relevant to what's going on that I'm talking about, do feel free to drop in. So I'm going to go through some of the news in the Elite League at the moment. We can leave our discussion topic until Chris decides to turn up. That'd be very nice. And there's a few little snippets of news that actually slipped under the cracks for me. I had to really look for some of these pieces of information. Whether it's just because I missed it, which I don't think I did, or whether it's a case of they didn't really want it that publicised. I don't know. So, the Sheffield Steelers have been active again in finding players over this last week. And this was published on Tuesday the 5th of February, so it was the day after our podcast last week. The Sheffield Steelers have signed a new goaltender. And the goaltender they have signed is Carson Chuback, who previously played with the Edinburgh Capitals. Now, this is very interesting. This is a very interesting story, and the reason why it's interesting is because Schumacher last played in a hockey game in the 2015-16 season. He is 3 years removed from playing professional hockey. He played 48 games in the 15-16 season and had an .882 save percentage. He suffered ongoing injuries over that last season. He played with the Edinburgh Capitals, I believe, in that season, and he had injury problems and had a lot of difficulties trying to stay healthy for the Capitals and for any other team that he was playing with. So the 29-year-old now, he's resurfaced. He's appeared again as an insurance policy for the Sheffield Steelers. Of course, the Steelers have Jackson Whistle, they have Brad Day, but now they have picked up Schumacher in order to be an insurance policy, and he's also going to try and compete for the backup netminding position in the Sheffield Steelers organisation. According to, was it Scott Neal? What was it? Where is it? Yes, Scott Neal. Yeah, Scott Neal, the former Sheffield Steelers winger. He was a part of the Edinburgh Capitals organisation. He said that Schumacher is a good kid, although he had his long-term hip condition when he was with us. He did pretty well, and I kept in touch for a while after he left. I know he had an operation and he hasn't played professionally. I don't know what he's been doing on the ice, but it won't have been at a high level. So he hasn't really played professional hockey or anything close at all for the last little while. But he was astonished to find that he's at the Steelers. So he was astonished. He was like, hang on a minute, this guy still exists. Having said that, he's a capable goalie and an intelligent guy too. He's smaller than a lot of netminders, more of a reaction style than anything. Technically, he's very sound. And he gets across the crease quick, and if he is fit and ready, he can win you a few games. So, it'll be very interesting. I always say this, because it is. It'll be very interesting to see whether he actually gets any starts. I guess if Brad Day does a good job when he's in the net and plays some good hockey for them, then they won't need Schumacher to take to the ice. He can be in the press box as a healthy scratch for most nights, which I don't think is an issue for the Sheffield Steelers in this. Of course, it'd be great to get Chris's opinion on this as well, but of course he's not here. But I think I might have a picture of Chris that I could stick up at some point if it really gets that long. But, right, okay, so he's going to give it a go. Chris is almost here. But yeah, Schumacher. So, I think Tom Barrasso, head coach of the Sheffield Steelers, who we'll talk about in more detail later, he wants Brad Day to be the backup. He's just picked up Schumacher just in case there's any problems. Or if the starting or backup netminder just don't produce for him. You know, like, if you've got the luxury of being able to pick up a third goaltender, then pick up a third goaltender, you know? I mean, if he ends up playing better than the other two players, which probably isn't going to happen considering he hasn't played in 3 years, and he's had recurring injuries that have caused a problem, I don't think it's going to... I don't think he's going to be competing for the starting spot at all. Although Barrasso kind of seems like he would like that. But yeah, so, Schumacher going to the Sheffield Steelers. I really had to look for that. I had to look all over Elite Prospects, and I managed to find an article based on that. Usually teams are very good at publicising when they get new players on the roster. This one wasn't publicised very well from the Sheffield Steelers. Either that, or I missed it, which I never usually miss most of these. So, I don't know. Sheffield Steelers, get on that. Anyway, moving on, there was a suspension that took place yesterday. The reason for it took place 2 days ago. So the EIHL, the Elite Ice Hockey League, Department of Player Safety, everyone's favourite department, they confirmed that a instigator penalty that was called on Belfast Giants player Jonathan Boxhill was correctly assessed. So the officials in the game decided to give Jonathan Boxhill an instigator penalty, and the Department of Player Safety reviewed it and said, yep, that makes sense. Now, the reason that they have said that this was correctly assessed was considering the rules and criteria of the situation. It was in the last 5 minutes of the game. The gloves were off, and he travelled a great distance in order to try and engage with whichever player. I must admit, I haven't actually seen anything about the instance. They haven't put up a video about it either, which is very interesting. I thought that the Department of Player Safety had to do that, or they did that with all of them. Perhaps because it wasn't them that was being proactive with it, it was the referees that did it, and they're just coming in as clarification. They've decided, no, it's fine, we just need to make a clarification and clear it up. So, yeah, he tried to start a fight in the last 5 minutes of the game. By the looks of it, I didn't know this was a thing, but it makes sense. if you try and start a fight within the last 5 minutes, you basically get an ejection from the game anyway. Maybe not necessarily a penalised ejection, but because it's in the last 5 minutes, you're not going to come back out on the ice for the last 5 minutes because you're sitting a 5-minute penalty. And so, yeah, he was suspended 1 game, Jonathan Boxhill was, which he served yesterday night when the Panthers played the Belfast Giants, which the Panthers won in overtime. So, yeah, Jonathan Boxhill was suspended for 1 game. He served that suspension now. And I've got the tweet that the Department of Player Safety put up here, which is very interesting. Lots of people saying that the Department of Player Safety is a joke, but of course you always expect that with this. Missed calls from both sides. Oh, hi, Chris. Thanks for joining us, bud. Oh, here he is. He's decided to turn up today, has he? Oh, and now he's gone again. Oh, no, here he is. Here he is. Hi, Chris.
Hello, I'm here, but I can't see myself. For God's sake.
Hi, Chris. So,
hello.
Chat, do you want to get to scolding Chris for being so unprofessional? I invite him onto my podcast as my co-host, and he stands me up like that. How disgraceful.
I can't even see myself, so I bet you can't, can you?
No, not yet.
No,
bear with.
no, right.
We'll get
there. It still says I'm ringing you. It's not even connected at the minute, according to my laptop. So.
It says you're connected.
Yeah, no. According to me, it's just ringing.
And this guy's a commentator in the ice hockey world, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well.
Your point is.
So,
yeah,
Chris,
I had a late night last night.
You can give your opinions because we can hear you, so that's great.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm used to radio. It's only going to crack everybody's screen anyway.
So, you heard everything that I spoke about, right?
Yes. I've been listening for the entire...
That's good.
Yeah.
So, Sheffield Steelers signing Schumack. What do you think, quickly?
I could just see myself for a moment and then I've gone. Interesting one. Very interesting one.
That's what I said.
I know it's what I've been listening alongside trying to sort Skype out because it's being ridiculous.
Yeah.
Just have a nice Panthers logo. It's fine. I find it strange, obviously, because he's not played for so long.
Yeah.
But
like, why him of all people?
Well, yeah, it does seem a little bit like that. It strikes me that perhaps, obviously, because he's in as a backup, but they're obviously not planning on using him because otherwise, if they were going to use him regularly, they'd have somebody who's been playing. Well,
they said that they want him. I guess what they're trying to do is they're trying to light a fire underneath the other 2 goaltenders to be like, if you don't bring up your A game, then we will put a goalie that hasn't played in 3 years into the net. We don't even care.
There is that side to it.
I guess Whistle and Brad Day, Tom Brasso's basically going, step up your game, or we will put in somebody that hasn't taken to the ice. There you are. Hasn't taken to the ice in 3 years.
Oh, my hair. Oh, sweet.
So
yeah,
I think this is more of like a statement from Tom Barrasso than anything else. I don't think he'll count towards the imports, the list of imports, because because he'll probably be sitting as a healthy scratch most days. So he's not actually taking to the lineup. So I don't know. Okay, so the Boxhill suspension, Chris, quickly. What do you think?
Yes, very, very quickly. I had to close down every single tab to make this work. Again, it's interesting that they've not released a video because, as you said, I thought they had to. So I don't know. Maybe they're still working on it because they do all the slow motion frame by frame editing now, by the look of it.
I mean, but that takes like 5 minutes to do.
Well, yeah, but it also takes about 30 seconds to check that the Panthers aren't playing themselves and Dundee aren't playing twice when you're putting a social media post out. So,
yeah, for those of you who don't know what Chris is referring to, I sent him an image that the Elite Ice Hockey League put up on their Facebook and Twitter, I think, yesterday. The bigger reaction was from Facebook, though. And somebody in the media department of the Elite Ice Hockey League hadn't checked their work before they submitted it. Very uni student to me. And the looks of it had the Nottingham Panthers playing the Nottingham Panthers, which I thought was a really contested affair. I mean, I'm not an expert, but I would have had the Panthers to win, maybe. Knowing them, you never know. And it also had Dundee playing twice, I believe.
Yes, they did. They had Dundee against, and Cardiff, Sunderland didn't have to travel. Very quickly, speaking of Panthers, this breaking news.
Oh.
Launched at 7 since you started. Saturday night show sent down on YouTube. Panthers against Steelers is back for this Saturday night's game.
Yeah, I did hear about that. I mean, I don't know why they're showing the Panthers well, I know why they're showing the Panthers versus the Steelers. The problem is the Panthers can never actually play hockey when they play the Steelers. They forget.
Well, it's because it's heading for a sellout again, isn't it? So
Yeah, I
there's
would
only
imagine
50
so.
tickets left.
Yeah. Yeah, so we can talk about that in a little bit more detail later on. So let's move on to the next bit of information. This is just a small one. We've got a few bigger topics. Did you see my message I sent you, by the way, Chris, before?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
I've seen it just now, yeah.
Good, perfect. Okay. So we've got something interesting to talk about, which was provided to us by Max a little bit later. For you Fife Flyers and Cardiff Devils fans, there was the game that was supposed to take place last week that was postponed due to adverse weather conditions. Essentially, there was a lot of wind and the ferries weren't running.
Yeah, Fife got stuck in Belfast.
Yeah. So basically, Fife was stuck in Northern Ireland going, well, what do we do now? So Fife and Cardiff, they've rearranged the fixture. It's going to be in Cardiff, right?
No, it's in Fife.
Oh, it's in Fife. I don't know. It's in Fife. To take Chris's word for it. On Thursday, the 7th of March. So if you had tickets to that game, if you've originally purchased tickets to the postponed game, they will be valid on the game's new date. So
if you can get up, because it's now a Thursday night.
If you can get up there, yeah, exactly. So just thought I'd let you know that. There's another game taking place on the 7th of March, which I assume is right at the end of the season, right? That's a month's time.
Towards the end of the season, yeah. I mean, it's the 7th of March. I think the season finishes on the 16th, 17th, because I think the Elite League and the EIHL finish at the same time.
Right, okay, interesting. So that was that. Now, the penultimate thing we've got to talk about with this league, we've kind of blitzed through these quite quickly at the moment, because they're all kind of small pieces of news. These are the big ones we're talking about. Oh, excuse me. So, the Challenge Cup. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about that cup that doesn't really count towards much again. So, the second half of the semi-finals takes place on Valentine's Day, of all days, because nothing says true love like watching your team lose at home in the second leg and not going to the finals of the Challenge Cup. How romantic. So, for those of you who have forgotten, the Belfast Giants are going up against the Glasgow Clan, and the Nottingham Panthers are going up against the Guildford Flames. Now, as it stands at the moment, correct me if I'm wrong here, Chris, I'm going from this off memory, the Glasgow Clan have a 2-1 lead over Belfast after the first leg, and the Guildford Flames have a 6-3 lead over the Nottingham Panthers.
No, 5-2. You got the right gap, but wrong scoreline. 5-2.
5-2. Okay, so a 1-goal lead for Glasgow and a 3-goal lead for the Guildford Flames. So, let's have a little bit of chat about this Challenge Cup, because we've talked about it a lot on this podcast over the last, well, not the last few weeks, but over the series of this podcast. We've had a lot of questions as to who's going to win it. Is it still relevant? Is there any point in it? Which, I mean, sometimes it is. Now,
it seems such a long time ago back in October when I was trying to work out all those permutations.
Yeah. So, I want to put something forward to you, Chris. And we've had a little bit of a conversation about this, and I want to put this forward to the people watching as well. The Challenge Cup final, I would be 1,000 times more interested in the Challenge Cup final if the Glasgow Clan and the Guildford Flames played against each other.
Yes.
If Belfast and Nottingham went through, I would not care.
Well, I would, because I want Panthers to win it, obviously, but no, I would rather have Glasgow and Guildford win it, but it's going to be tough for Glasgow to hold on against Belfast.
But this is the state of this cup, where fans of one of the teams that is in the semi-finals would rather see 2 other teams go through. Like, that's a sad state of affairs, and we're probably not the only people that feel like that. Whether you're a fan of a team that's already been eliminated, or you're a fan of one of the teams still in the semi-finals. Like,
yeah, but it's like the FA Cup, isn't it? You know that the final's going to be like Manchester United against Arsenal, but you still want a team like Newport County to win games like they have been.
Like, the Challenge Cup is this perfect thing for an underdog story.
Yeah, you want the underdog teams of Glasgow and Guildford.
I don't want arena teams winning every single trophy every single season. And to be fair, Cardiff isn't really an arena team, but they've kind of got the they've had trophies locked down every single season since we started, or since the last few years. But yeah, I just think Belfast and Nottingham, like, Nottingham have won it the most times out of anyone. Belfast won it last year. Like, I don't care. Put on Glasgow Guildford, because Guildford, I actually like them as a team. Like, they have their problems, they have their shortcomings, but they are probably one of the hardest working teams out of any team in the Elite League, without a doubt. And the Glasgow Clan, they had a pretty rough year last year. They had a pretty slow start to this year, but like I said earlier, they're 1 point off third place in the league now. Like, they've got their shit together. Like, I want to see those two teams go at it. You know?
Yeah, I've not looked at the league table, because also I was trying to sort it out, so I've not looked at my Skype out, so I've not looked at the table yet.
Yeah.
But I was listening to you, but I've not properly...
So, forgetting what we want to happen,
yeah.
What do you think is gonna happen?
I think that Belfast are going to overturn, because especially since they're at home, Belfast are going to overturn that 1-goal deficit to Glasgow.
Yep.
But I do think that Guildford are going to hold on, and I think it'll be Belfast against Guildford.
You know what? I think the exact same thing. I think Nottingham, yeah, they've come down from 3-goal deficits before. The one that really does ring a bell is last year's playoff semi-finals.
That was such a good game.
Yeah, it was a brilliant game. It's one of the only games I got to last year, and it was fucking awesome. And they played the Belfast Giants, of course, and they managed to overcome a 3-goal deficit to make it to finals weekend, which was awesome. However, I just don't see the team this year doing it. I mean, if they did it, fair play to them. Like, great. I get to see the Panthers in the final. But I am really expecting the Belfast Giants and the Guildford Flames. The Guildford Flames, they managed to... Because the Nottingham-Guildford game is in Nottingham, right?
It is.
Yeah, so the Guildford Flames did a really good job with the home ice advantage that they had. They put up 5 goals on the Nottingham Panthers, which, I mean, any game that you score 5 goals, you've done a good job. You know, the other game was a 2-1 deficit. The other game was more of a defensive-minded game. The Nottingham-Guildford one was who could score the most goals. So,
yeah. So, recent games between the two, it is a bit hit and miss. So, Nottingham won away at Guildford 8-3, but then Guildford won in Nottingham 6-2. Nottingham won in Nottingham 3-1. And then Guildford beat Nottingham in the first leg 5-2. That's the last 4 matches between the two sides. So it's all kind of... You almost don't know what to make of it. But I think Guildford will hold on. Which, to be honest, as much as I like the Panthers, I want Guildford to do. Because I'd like to see, especially one of the new teams, in the final.
I think the past games that you just read out is very true, or very much... shows that the Nottingham Panthers and the Guildford Flames, they're two teams that you never quite know which team is going to turn up, which version of their team is going to turn up. With the Panthers, are you going to get the firing on all cylinders, Garnett being a brick wall, the defence keeping any opposing players out of the crease and away from the goal and blocking Garnett's eyes, or are you going to get the team that gives up a goal really early and then just gives up, you know?
Yeah, I mean, we're almost being a bit unfair to Glasgow and Guildford here, because we're saying, they're the underdogs and all the rest of it, but they're 4th and 5th, and the Panthers and the Giants are only 3rd and 2nd. I mean, both Glasgow Guildford can't, but Glasgow could overtake the Panthers with the games in hand.
I don't think you can say that Guildford isn't an underdog team, though.
No, I think the thing with the Panthers is the Panthers, and Max will and JTW will know this with me as well, is the Panthers have always been brilliant at this one game,
everything on the
almost
line.
A shootout type thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, one game, everything on the line. They can come back from behind. They can. That's why they've been so good in game scenarios where everything is on that one game. They've always been brilliant.
Absolutely. So yeah, the Challenge Cup is taking place. The semi-finals are taking place. When is the final of the Challenge Cup then?
The final of the Challenge Cup is the first weekend of March, I believe. Isn't it like the 3rd of March, 2nd, 3rd of March?
I don't know. That's why I'm asking you.
Yeah. I'm sure it is.
Yeah. So we're going to keep an eye on that. I'm sure we'll have a lot to talk about on next week's podcast about it. So yeah, come on Glasgow, come on Guildford. Give us a good game. So yeah, Challenge Cup. Now, we get to our play under review for this week. Now, it was originally going to be about the Challenge Cup and what we thought about it, but our good friend and frequent guest to the podcast, Mr. Max Artis, who is in the chat down below, who started making his YouTube videos, which are very good. He sent a link to a article written by the Sheffield Star, which I thought should be, I think it's quite a good talking point. So, this is an exclusive from the Sheffield
I'm going to let
Star.
you read it. I daren't click on Skype in case it fails.
It's absolutely fine, I'll read it.
So, read it.
So, Sheffield Steelers are actively seeking new coach behind the scenes. Ooh. This was published about 1 o'clock today. So, let's have a cheeky read,
It's not very behind the scenes anymore, is it?
No, not at all. You've been exposed, Sheffield.
Dun dun dun.
So, Tom Barrasso is set to be replaced by a new Sheffield Steelers coach at the end of the season. Club owner Tony Smith today confirmed that would be the outcome unless the American team boss has a change of heart and commits himself to stay another term. Barrasso wants to wait and see if there are any positions available at higher leagues in Russia or Germany, which I don't blame him. I'll just put that out there now. He's well within his right to do so. But the Arena Club needs to be proactive and plan ahead. And when the Star asked Smith whether they could afford to wait for the ex-NHL netminder, he replied, "No, we cannot." Interesting. Where is it? Where's it gone? I've met with Tom, and it's clear he wants to wait and see if there's an opportunity at a higher level. We cannot wait until April, May, or June for an answer. Why not? We owe it to the club and its fan base to act, so we are actively seeking a replacement. As things, sorry, I've got my webcam in the way. As things stand, we will have a new coach in the summer unless Tom does a U-turn. We are looking at some very high-quality potential coaches and working hard on background checks and due diligence. We plan to whittle that down to 3 or 4 candidates shortly. Smith has been saddened he could not change Barrasso's mind and was quoted saying, "I like him. He's a very good coach. He has changed things, helped us turn the team around." I mean, he kind of has. We were a 10th place club when he came in, and he's done a great job. You're like a 7th place club, and you're like 2 points ahead of the team below you. So let's not get ahead of ourselves, Tony. Unfortunately for us, he wants something better than the Elite League, which is fair. He's allowed to. And you cannot deny any person that chance. You are right. Steelers are also working round the clock to find a replacement for D-man Mark Matheson, who broke a bone in his foot last Saturday and could be out for 8 weeks. Damn, I didn't even know that. I have 3 players' CVs in front of me that we are looking at. We must try and replace Mark at all costs. Smith said that the money would always be available for players in situations like this. Boom, there's your exclusive. So I'm just going to start off by saying, Tom Barrasso, as a coach, is well within his right to look at other teams and other opportunities before committing to the Sheffield Steelers. I don't think it's fair for any fans to be like, he's not dedicated to our team. He doesn't have to be dedicated to your team. Like, once his contract is up, he doesn't owe you anything. Like, he's helped turn your team around to an extent. Like, you're in the playoffs now. You're in with the chance of going to the postseason. And I'm glad, I think Sheffield Steelers fans will be glad that they've had this conversation now, that Tony Smith has had this conversation with Barrasso now, as opposed to playoff finals weekend. So he has time to, like he said, plan accordingly and see who's available and see what's going on. I think that, like he said, Tom Barrasso wants something that's bigger and better than the Elite League, and I don't blame him. He's a Stanley Cup champion, and he has every right to go and find a team elsewhere. The only thing that confuses me is, why do they have to have an answer now? Is it because they already have somebody else that they're interested in, and they want to give Barrasso dibs and the first chance to go, if you want it, we will give it back to you because you've earned that right from coming in and turning the team around to become a playoff team? Or are they going, we want to have a bit more stability here from the get-go, or we want to give you the exact limitations of what you can do now so that you can plan accordingly for next season? Because they've already said, like, the amount of players coming in and out, that's kind of put a financial strain on the team. Like, I'm not saying that there's going to be any huge financial bankruptcy problems or anything in the Steelers. I think they'll be alright, because they do have a very dedicated and relatively large fan base, considering teams in the Elite League. However, I don't think it's very fair on Tony Smith and the Sheffield Steelers to demand an answer from Tony Smith right now. Tom Barrasso right now. Like, he's a guy that came in late. If his previous team that he'd left to come and join the Sheffield Steelers had done the same with him, he wouldn't be here. You know? Like, he wouldn't have turned the team around. So, I get that it's like they want him to be, if he's going to stay, they want him to be here as early as possible to start the recruitment process as early as possible. I mean, Paul Thompson did that last year. Didn't work out so well for them, did it? So, I just don't know. I don't think it's fair on them to expect an answer now when we've still got like 15, 20 games left in the season. When we hit playoffs, yeah, maybe. That's when the talk should begin. Especially if the Steelers don't make it. But I don't know. What do you think, Chris?
Well, I know why they're doing it. It's so they don't have to run around like headless chickens panicking and grabbing any old coach and any old players in the summer.
But then again, that's what they're doing already by the sounds of it.
Well, they must have people that they want, and in order to, because obviously the people it's the same in any sport. If people under contract are more valuable and more desirable than people who aren't under a contract. So they're looking at people who have got a couple of months left on the contract now to potentially bring in, rather than getting a coach who's not had his contract renewed, because it's a bit ominous if you've not had a contract renewed.
Yeah.
So they're obviously looking at people, and they want to know, can they bring him in right at the start, give him a whole, I almost call it a transfer window then, but give it a whole summer to sort everything out. What they don't want to do is right at the end of the season, Barrasso go, no, you know what, I'm off, and then they have to suddenly find a coach, and then they lose like 4 weeks trying to do that, and then he's got to come in and get himself sorted and all of that.
Absolutely. You make some fair points there, but at the same time, now's not the time to be doing this. The reason I say this is because, as far as I'm aware, there aren't many, if any, professional hockey leagues that have finished their seasons yet. The KHL, I know, is one of the earliest ones, and they've still got about a week or so to go, a couple of weeks. So, and the reason I say this is because what happens at the end of every single professional hockey league regular season? The coaches that didn't do well for their teams and the teams that missed the playoffs and like grossly underperformed on their expectations, they're out the door, which means you have a load of coaching free agents to go after. Why would they want to commit to Tom Barrasso now? I mean, of course, I get why they want to commit to Tom Barrasso now, but if he's already said he's not interested, why is this coming out now? Why don't they go, we're going to wait until some of the other leagues have finished play and we know some of the coaches that are relieved of their duties, and then we start... Because, of course, they're probably looking at some people. They've probably approached some people, or they've made contact, or they have a short list of people that they're interested in. But I mean, of course, I've never run an elite ice hockey league team, so you could argue that what I'm saying doesn't make any sense or isn't right at all. But I just don't understand, like, from Tony Smith's perspective, like, I get why he wants that stability, but I don't think it's unfair to expect that he hasn't got it. You know?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the season, what does Tom Barrasso owe the Sheffield Steelers and their fan base?
Well, yeah.
So the way I see it is, as a Sheffield Steelers fan to an extent, like he's held up his end of the bargain. Like if he decides that he doesn't want to go and re-sign a contract with the Sheffield Steelers to be their head coach, he's allowed to do that. And of course, that does allow that does mean that the Sheffield Steelers do need to run around like headless chickens. But by the sounds of it, that's what they're doing already, because Barrasso said that he's not coming back. So, I'm glad that this information came out. I mean, I don't think this is the right time for this information to come out, because now all people are going to ask the Sheffield Steelers is, well, where do you go from here?
Yeah, they've got 13 games left. They're in a battle to get a playoff spot,
Yeah.
and now the players know that the coach isn't really that interested.
Exactly. Like, I mean, the locker room was cancerous at the start of the season to begin with. Like, I feel like we're going full circle here with the Steelers.
It does seem a little bit, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, like, we're going back to a position where either the coach has lost the players, or the players have lost the coach, or the management have lost the coach, or the coach has lost the management. And that's going to trickle down to everyone. And I'm not saying that it's going to cause a huge problem and the team's not going to play. I guess they've just gone into, right, we've got this many games left. Let's just get on with it, try and win as many games as possible, and then we'll all part ways, and we'll see what happens next year, you know?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, the Sheffield Steelers, for practically the entirety of the season, have been in damage control. Like,
Yeah, since about a month and a half in.
Well, even before that, when they were sitting near the bottom, if at the bottom of the standings, I'm pretty sure there was one point they were either 10th or 11th in the league.
They were bottom of the league at a point, yeah.
Yeah, so they've been in damage control the entirety of the season. I think fair play to Tom Barrasso for coming in and doing the job that he's done. Like, but once his contract is up, he doesn't owe the Sheffield Steelers anything. And that's not to say that I don't want him back. I think he's been quite a good coach for the team. I think given the chance to have the full, full pay at his disposal, he could put together a pretty decent roster of solid players. Because he obviously has a mentality, he obviously has a game plan that he wants to enact. However, if he doesn't want to stay, he's well within his right to do so, and I get why this is the worst time for this news to come out. Like, whether it will affect the team or not, it probably won't, because, I mean, how many people read the Sheffield Star anyway outside of Sheffield?
Well, it's a local paper, so nobody.
Well, yeah, exactly. But, I mean, I do. I just read it. But at the same time, it's, like, it might not affect them a huge amount, but now the news is out there. Like, why would if Tony Smith knew that this was going to be reported and released within the last week, because by the looks of it, the Sheffield Star have a very good relationship with the Steelers organisation. Doesn't Simsy write a column in it, like, every week or something as well?
Yeah, they are decent, because obviously it's one of their teams, so...
Exactly, so they've got really good... by the looks of it, they've got a really good relationship with the Sheffield Steelers. Why would Tony Smith say, you can publish this before the end of the season? That's what I don't understand. Why has he gone, you can release this information that we're looking for a new head coach for next season before this season's even ended? Like,
yeah, I'm not sure how it's going to help.
Yeah, exactly. What he should have said was, like, we're in discussions to try and keep Tom Barrasso here. There you go. You know? But that should be the headline, and then at the end of the season it can all come out. He didn't actually want to stay in the first place. We tried our best to keep him here, but unfortunately he wanted to move on to bigger and better things. Like, but you don't release this with a dozen games left in the regular season when you're fighting for a playoff spot. That's just me, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, the Sheffield Steelers, interesting scenario going there. Everything's interesting today. It's like the song from the Lego movie, Everything's Awesome, but everything's interesting. Another thing that people are wanting us to talk about, Chris, is the Manchester Fife situation.
Yes, and I have seen it, and I have the statement.
Yes, I did read the statement just before we started, so...
yes.
For those that don't know, Chris, do you want to just let them know? Because I've got to be honest, I didn't actually hear about this instance until just before we went live.
Have you seen the video?
Live, and then you turned up half an hour later, but that's besides the point. So, do let us know about the whole situation.
So... what happened was the Storm and the Flyers, they played their game, and the two teams just kind of wait, for the man of the match at the end, and they go to one half of the ice each and have the man. You know how it works.
Yep.
One person goes, gets a crate of beer, all the rest of it. Anyway, so what happened was Dane Byers found himself at the other end of the ice to where he was meant to be.
No man's land.
Suddenly surrounded by a load of opposition players.
As you do.
A load of 5 players who just started beating him up, really. And then it just ended up in a huge I would say a bench clearance, but the benches are already cleared for the man of the match. But you get the idea.
Everyone finding a dance partner.
Yeah. So his statement reads thusly after this.
That's a very nice word, thusly.
To whom it may concern. After the game in Fife, and after shaking hands with their players and coaches, I returned back to our end of the ice before the man of the match is announced. To my knowledge, every team in the league returns to their own end for this. I, unknowingly, didn't realise that Fife do it differently to every other team in the league. Once I realised I was alone with all of the Fife players, I began to get verbally attacked from many of them. As a hockey player, I stood my ground, but not going any further than a few words back. This is what started a regrettable altercation that I had no intention of starting, which I believe the video shows. And he has got a fair point, because, it's not like he's been with the Storm for a couple of seasons now and played in Fife about 5 or 6 times. Oh, wait, hang on. Yeah.
No, but do you know what I love about this whole, statement? The fact that he basically goes, I'm not apologising for what happened, or for what I did. I'm not in the wrong. Whoever fucked up, you fucked up, but it wasn't me.
Yeah, he ended up at the wrong end of the ice. I don't know what part of him thought, I'm right, and the whole rest of my team is wrong, and the whole Five team are wrong.
Just for a bit of added context, what was the final score of that game?
The final score of that game, I've got to bring it up. Didn't it get to overtime, I seem to remember?
I don't know, that's why I'm asking.
The score was a 2-1 to Fife.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So.
I mean that. Yeah, it's an interesting. Again, here we go. It's a strange one, that one, isn't it? I love how he goes to whomever it may concern. He's basically saying, whether it's the Department of Player Safety, whether it's the Fife Flyers management, I don't care who it's meant to go to, but who it is supposed to go to, here you go. And I love how basically his own actions, I don't know who's in the right, and to be honest, I don't really care. I'm just here to take the piss out of it at the moment. I just love the fact that he's like, it happened. It's basically like a kid going, they started it and I defended myself. Don't tell me off. But I love it.
It's Five clearly don't do it differently to every other team in the league. He's been up there several times before, because he was with the Storm last year. He was at the wrong end of the ice and he was getting verbally abused, he says, and Fife started it apparently. So then obviously Manchester naturally are going to go and defend their lone guy on the other side of the ice.
Yeah. The only thing I would say is, of course, I haven't seen the video of it, so I just want to preface what I'm saying with that. It's his word against theirs at the moment, isn't it? The video's out there and it's readily available to watch, but he's basically trying to clear his name there and be like, I did nothing wrong, please don't suspend me.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of... naturally, with every team, there were a lot of players who were because they were all in one big huddle.
Yeah.
And obviously 95% of the players are literally just stood there because they have no interest in getting involved in a completely pointless fight, and they're chatting to people on the other team. And then there's
when the game's
2 or
over
3.
and it's you've got nothing left to play for.
And there's 2 or 3 around the Fife zone that are having a bit of a scrap, and the referees are just I can't even control this, so I'm just going to stand and watch.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to see what the league and the Department of Player Safety kind of say about that. No one really got any injuries or anything from it, because even the fights that happened weren't really kind of proper fights.
So the only other thing I would add is somebody who is it? Where is it? Max Lee says, I hate the fact that the Storm are the goons, apparently. To be fair, they have got a bit of a reputation in the league. Not necessarily for being
they have
goons.
The most penalty minutes, didn't you say?
Yeah, they have over 200 penalty minutes more than any other team in the league. And they're about to hit 1,000 penalty minutes. two more fights, and a tripping penalty, and they're there.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, when you have the most penalty minutes by over 200, more than the second most penalised team, you do kind of gain a bit of a reputation, and some of that's got to be from fact. Like, I don't think the Manchester Storm are without blame in this at all. Well, more specifically, Dane Byers. Like, I think it's both teams. There are obviously a couple of players there that had some scores they wanted to settle before they left the ice. The adrenaline was running. Manchester had just lost the game. Whether Dane Byers was like, I want to chirp at them to get the insult high ground as opposed to us winning the actual game for points that we really need right now because we're out of the playoffs at the moment. I don't know, but yeah, we need to have a name for this, like the Fifegate, the Fifegate scandal.
Fifegate.
Because we never know, there might be an update next week, and we need to refer to it as the Fifegate scandal.
Okay, right. Everyone remember that it's the Fifegate scandal.
Fifegate scandal. If you come up with a better name, do let me know, and we will change it. So that is the Elite League stuff today. We're just under an hour for that, so not too bad. Let's move on to the handy-dandy NHL stuff. Across the pond. The New York Rangers had a good game last night. They beat the Maple Leafs.
Did they?
Yeah, Alexander Georgiev made 55 saves.
Okay.
And we took 2 points from you bloody bastards.
Oh, I don't care. Just look at the table. I just love how because my elite prospects decided to be really slow. You know how you were saying that it's Dane Byers' fault?
Yeah.
In 43 games, he's got 178 penalty minutes this season.
I mean, like, come on. 107. Oh, wait just a second. I'm going to do some quick math here.
It's just over 4 a game.
Just over 4 a game. He's averaging a fight a game, pretty much.
Pretty much,
or a double minor a game.
Yeah.
Really?
Yes, anyway, NHL.
So, yeah, the National Hockey League. Tampa Bay still in the lead with 86 points.
Of course.
Second, we have Calgary with 74. Third, we have Winnipeg with 73. And fourth place, San Jose also have 73. Fifth place, the New York Islanders with 72 points. First place in the Metro Division. Second place in the Eastern Conference. And they lost John Tavares this last offseason. Barry Trotz has been the saviour of the Islanders for sure. The Toronto Maple Leafs are in 6th place with 71 points, and they lost last night. The Nashville Predators, they have 71 points also for 7th place. The Boston Bruins have 70 points for 8th place. The Montreal Canadiens, still defying all expectations placed upon them. 69 points in 56 games to take 9th place. The Capitals with 67 points for 10th place. The Vegas Golden Knights have bounced back from a tough start to the season. 66 points for 11th place. The Blue Jackets, 12th place with 65. Pittsburgh, 13th with 63. Carolina, 14th with 62. Dallas and Buffalo, 15th and 16th, both have 61 points. 17th and 18th, the St. Louis Blues, who are on a 6-game winning streak. And the Minnesota Wild, they both have 59 points for 17th and 18th. The Philadelphia Flyers, they have not lost in regulation in their last 10 games, thanks to their goaltender Carter Hart, their rookie goaltender they brought up. They are now back in the playoff race. 57 points in 55 games. The Vancouver Canucks, 57 points for 20th place in the league. 57 points in 56 games. The New York Rangers in 21st, 6-3-1 in our last 10 games. 56 in 55 for 21st. Then Colorado and Chicago, 22nd and 23rd. 55 points each for them. Florida, 24th place in the league with 54 points. Arizona, they are in 25th with 53 points. Edmonton, 26th with 53 points. They're 3-5-2 in their last 10 games. That franchise is just imploding on itself this year. Ken Hitchcock is really unhappy with the majority of his players, and rightly so. They suck. The LA Kings, 51 points for 27th in the league. The Anaheim Ducks on a 7-game losing streak after losing 10 games a couple of weeks before. So they're 51 points in 56 games. The New Jersey Devils, 50 points in 55 games. The Detroit Red Wings, 49 points in 56 games to take 30th. And last, and certainly least, the Ottawa Senators with 47 points to take 31.
Cannot tell you how happy that makes me being a blue and white.
However, 2-game winning streak for them. And they're only 2 points back from Detroit.
Yeah, but the bottom of the
Now,
Bottom of the
the
entire
really,
league.
really crazy thing about this, the Western Conference is absolutely mental at the moment. So,
Yeah.
just for a bit of context, there are 8 points separating last place in the Western Conference and the first wildcard spot.
Yep.
And there are 9 teams competing for those 2 spots.
Yep.
That is crazy. To give you a bit of context, right? The difference between last place in the Eastern Conference and the first wildcard spot, 22 points. That's the difference. Jesus Christ, the West. What the problem is? So the interesting thing with the West. I was on the radio for a Chicago news network again this last weekend, and we were talking about the Blackhawks. The teams that started off the season slow in the West have started to pick up their game and go on some lengthy winning streaks. The Blackhawks on a
Chicago
7-game
have
winning
won
streak.
7 in a row.
Yeah, and Patrick Kane a big reason for that. He's got like 30 points in the last 14 games or something like that. Like, he's almost taken over Kucherov for the scoring lead. It's mental how well he's been playing. But, yeah, like, so Colorado and Edmonton to an extent and Anaheim, they all started off the year relatively well. They've completely imploded these last few weeks. St. Louis, Chicago, the LA Kings, they all started the year awfully. They've now started to pick up their pace a little bit now. So, yeah, we're talking 8 points separating last place to the first wildcard spot. That's just crazy. To be fair, the Central Division, their third place team in the Central Division is only 2 points up from the first wildcard spot. But there is a bit more of a gap. The Pacific Division has got it locked down. Calgary with 74 points, San Jose with 73, and Vegas with 66. The difference between Vegas and the first wildcard spot is 7 points. That's almost the same as the first wildcard spot to last place in the division. How does that happen? For the last few years, the Western Conference has really been like the conference. Like, they've been the dominant regular season one, but the East always seems to win it. However, the East are now being the dominant conference to an extent, especially with Tampa Bay. They're killing it right now. And maybe the West win it this year. Maybe it flips over. Who knows? It's all going to be a very, very interesting end to the season, that's for sure. So
yeah, we're going to get towards the end of the season, and it's going to turn into like half an hour Elite League and like an hour.
Yeah. But the crazy thing is, the trade deadline is going to be mental this year.
Yes. Is that the 28th?
The 20, maybe, yeah, 26th, 28th, something like that. I'll check. I'll check that now before we move on. I think it's the 26th. EIHL.
That's the Tuesday.
Yeah, I believe it is during the week.
Okay.
25th, so it's on the Monday.
That's the Monday, okay.
The Monday.
So they've literally only got a fortnight to get stuff done.
Yep, pretty much. So we could do a trade deadline edition of the Icing on the Skate podcast if people are interested in it. Because the trade deadline, I think, is like 8 PM our time. So
yeah, it would be, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it's 3 PM Eastern, I believe. So maybe we'll get on there. So we'll now move on to some of the news that's taken place in the NHL. And we'll start with the Anaheim Ducks. So we mentioned the Anaheim Ducks a minute ago. They've lost like 17 of their last like 18 to 20 games. So their record in the last 21 games: 2 wins, 15 losses, 4 overtime losses or shootout losses. Their goal differential -48. Their power play percentage 12%. Their penalty killing 78. So yeah. It's not going well for the Anaheim Ducks at the moment. So, the Anaheim Ducks decided to make the drastic change to fire Randy Carlyle, the head coach of the team, from his duties as head coach. Now, the interesting thing here is, instead of bringing in an assistant coach to be the interim guy, executive vice president and general manager, Bob Murray, will take over as the coach for the remainder of the season. Now, when I first saw this, I was like, what the fuck is he doing? Why is a general manager... Like, with no prior coaching experience in the National Hockey League, how does he think that he's going to be the right guy to take this team moving forwards? Then I can't remember who mentioned it, but I saw an intro. I think it was him. Brian Burke did an interview. Bob Murray, sorry, did an interview with an NHL insider or something, and he essentially said, "This is the best way for me to evaluate our talent for the rest of the season to see where we go moving forwards, to see who we keep at the deadline, who we move at the deadline, and who we keep in the seasons that follow." Now, I can kind of understand that to an extent, you know? Like, I get that he's now as close as possible. He's got the inside situation that he can see all of his players every single shift out there on the ice to see who are the players that are the right people to keep moving forwards. However, they're not that far out of a playoff spot. If they went on a 10-game winning streak to finish the season, they could have the second wildcard berth. Like, they've really shot themselves in the foot these last month or so. But like, if they had a pretty good end to the season, they could be in the postseason. I don't want a guy that's never coached professional hockey, let alone at the NHL level, coaching my team in the playoffs. But then again, he's the guy that would be annoyed if something like that happened, and he's made himself coach. The problem is, they're suffering from Edmonton Oilers syndrome. It's the old boys club. It's the old boys club trying to keep it with them. I mean, that's why Randy Carlyle was rehired in the first place. Oh, he won the cup with us back in 2007. He knows what it takes to win. Let's bring him back and help make stuff happen and help take us back to the glory days. But I mean, some of you might have seen my Champs to Chumps video. They don't have Jean-Sébastien Giguère anymore. They don't have Teemu Solani anymore. They don't have Scott Niedermayer anymore. And they don't have many players of that equivalent anymore. I mean, John Gibson, fair play. If he was playing on a successful team, he would be in the run for the Vezina Trophy. He has stood on his head to keep this team competitive, and it clearly hasn't worked recently because the team have basically given up on him. But John Gibson, he has been an absolute workhorse for the Anaheim Ducks. And so, yeah, you've got that Jean-Sébastien Giguère equivalent. Getzlaf and Perry were on that championship-winning roster. Perry's been out until last week because he's been injured for the entirety of the season. Like, you can't go back to the glory days of 2007. Like, you've got, like I mentioned in my Champs to Chumps video, you've got, like, less than half a dozen of your players still on the roster that were from that championship-winning team. How can you go back to the glory days when most of them have retired or fucked off? You know? What do you think, Chris?
Well, considering my football team's living in the glory days of about 50 years ago, I can't really talk. But, yeah. I can see where he's coming from. When I first read it, I thought, well, you're a bit big-headed, aren't you? Thinking you can just step in and do it.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment.
But I have to see kind of what happens, really, I suppose. Yeah, I mean, I can see where he's coming from, but I'm not entirely sure that it's necessarily the right decision.
I think this move is a clear indication that the Anaheim Ducks are going to be sellers at the trade deadline.
Oh, yeah.
Like, if they wanted to win the rest of the games, I think they're going to basically tank the rest of the season. You know? Like, try and get the highest draft pick possible, and we'll start our rebuild. I mean, they've only been a second-round conference finals team since 2007, which, by the way, Bob Murray, was 12 years ago now. Like, come on, let's move on, fella. Most Anaheim Ducks fans, what I've seen, want Bob Murray gone as well, because he's half the problem. I mean, the trades that he's made so far haven't really been looking to the future too much, and they haven't really helped bolster the team in the now, so don't really know what he's done there. But, yeah, Bob Murray, good luck. You're going to have the entire Anaheim Ducks fan base looking to crucify you, more so than they already are for what you've done already as the general manager since coming back, or since staying, or I don't care. But, yeah, good luck. Anyway, moving on. So, this was released, like, Tuesday last week. Like, this is quite old news, but we'll touch on it briefly. Austin Matthews. Matthews has signed a 5-year contract extension with the Toronto Maple Leafs worth $58.17 million. It's an average annual value of, like, $11.3 million, I believe, from what I read when it first came out. And the interesting thing is, according to Forbes, of all places, the last season includes a full no movement clause, including going down to the minors or being traded. So you can only offer that clause in a contract when, if that year, if they weren't signed to a team, they would be classed as an unrestricted free agent as opposed to a restricted free agent. So he's wanted that, or the Maple Leafs have wanted to have that clause on there. But to be fair, if things keep going the way they're going for Austin Matthews and he keeps being the dominant player that he is, I don't really expect that they'll need to exercise that clause at all. Chances are he's the future captain and the next star for the Toronto Maple Leafs, besides Mitch Marner. I know Mitch Marner still exists, all right, but yeah, I mean, I think this is a great contract. I mean, $11 million is expensive. Of course, everyone's going to go, oh, but the Maple Leafs have salary cap issues now. What about offer sheets? Oh, how are they going to sign Mitch Marner? They'll sign Mitch Marner. Mitch Marner isn't going anywhere. Mitch Marner is not going to be on any other team but the Toronto Maple Leafs come the end of this offseason. He's a restricted free agent. They have the cap space at the moment. Remember, Patrick Marleau's coming off the books at the end of this year. So if they don't want to re-sign him, they don't have to. And that's like $6 million, I think they signed him to. That's an extra $6 million that they can plug into Mitch Marner's contract, which will likely be at least or more than half. You know? So I do not expect the Mitch Marner will be moving anywhere. There are going to be cap problems with the Toronto Maple Leafs moving forwards. But then again, every team that goes for a championship has those salary cap problems.
I was going to say, they're going for it now, aren't they? So
yeah. Well, now, the next couple of seasons.
Yeah, this year and the next couple of years, they're going for it. And if they don't get it, then you'll see them drop down and they'll have a rebuild and all the rest of it, you know.
Well, another rebuild for the Maple Leafs. Oh, great. Number 6 in the last 50 years.
It'll make the success all the more sweeter when that cup comes home.
Very true, very true. Very true. Spoken like a true journalist there, Chris. So yeah, Austin Matthews got signed to that contract. I don't really want to spend too much time on that because it's kind of old news at this point. I mean, every single Canadian media outlet has made about 15 million videos on it. So yeah. Anyway, another contract extension worth mentioning, I think. The Chicago Blackhawks netminder Colin Delia has signed a 3-year contract extension worth an average annual value of $1 million a season. Now, to give you some context, the 24-year-old goaltender, who would have been a restricted free agent on July 1st, his record so far this season is 6-2-3, with a 2.98 goals against average and a .923 save percentage in 12 games this season. He was recalled from Rockford, or the Rockford Ice Hogs of the AHL, on December 17th, one day after Corey Crawford suffered a concussion in a loss to the San Jose Sharks, and he's now got his first multi-million-dollar contract. And I mean, if Delia keeps playing the way that he's playing, he's not hit his prime years of his career yet, this could be a steal come the end of the contract.
Oh, yeah.
If Corey Crawford does eventually move away from the Blackhawks, whether it be from deciding to call it a day due to injuries, or whether they trade him, whether he signs somewhere else, etc., etc., we don't know. We've got years to find that out. If Delia does eventually become the starting netminder by the end of this contract, and he continues to play how he's been playing recently, wow, that's going to be the biggest contract steal of the century, almost. Like, $1 million. Imagine if you got 30 wins in a season on a $1 million contract. Like, the one thing that the Chicago Blackhawks need at the moment, salary cap. They need salary cap space. And with a guy like Colin Delia, provided everything goes well and he continues this upward trend, they've got some salary cap space there. I mean, I don't quite know how much Corey Crawford is making. I would imagine it's something like $6 million, as an educated guess. That's $5 million shaved off the salary cap right there for a new starting netminder. Sure, come the end of the contract, he will want a huge pay rise if he does end up being this fantastic goaltender. But, I mean, he's got points in 9 of his first 11 games or first 12 games in the league. Well, that's pretty impressive. He's probably won his last 6 or 7 games because the Blackhawks are on a 7-game winning streak. I don't see why not. Let the kid play is what I say. And if not, he's a valuable backup for $1 million a season. You see, this is what the Edmonton Oilers should have done with Mikko Koskinen, but Peter Chiarelli decided to sign him to a very big contract, basically showing that Cam Talbot is on the move before the end of the deadline. Then he got fired, so he's like, hey, fuck you guys. Anyway, the Oilers, they are a mess. So, did you want to add anything onto that, Chris?
I think you've covered it pretty much in what seemed like it turned into a rant at the end.
Kind of, you know. So, we've got a couple of trades to announce here. A couple of trades took place this last week or so. The first one we're talking... Well, there's actually a new one that appeared as I was waiting for Chris to turn up on Skype. So, we'll talk about that one last, I think. It's the most recent one. So, the Philadelphia Flyers and the Montreal Canadiens have made a move recently. So, the Montreal Canadiens have acquired Dale Weiss and Christian Folin from the Flyers in exchange for Byron Froese, I don't know, and David Schlemko. So, to give you a bit of context, Dale Weiss has already played in Montreal for the Canadiens. It's a return for him. He played 152 games for the Canadiens between 2014 and 2016. And he set an NHL career-high 29 points with Montreal. He scored 14 goals in 56 games for the Canadiens before being traded to the Blackhawks in 2016 at the trade deadline. So they're getting a guy back that they're relatively familiar with, that knows what he's doing. He signed a 4-year contract with the Flyers in 2016. He has 11 points in 42 games for Philadelphia this season, before being waived at the start of this year to the Lehigh Valley Phantoms of the EIHL, where he had a goal and assist in 3 games. Weiss has played 481 NHL games, I should say, got 120 points in that span, and he has 11 points in 40 Stanley Cup playoff games. In terms of Christian Folin as well, he's in his 6th NHL season, and he's very much bounced around a lot by the looks of it. This is his 4th NHL team in 6 seasons, so he's very much been bouncing around. And then on the flip side, David Schlemko, he has 2 assists in 18 games for the Canadiens, as well as 4 points for their AHL affiliate team. He's a 31-year-old defenseman in his 11th NHL season and has 94 points in 415 games for the Phoenix/Arizona Coyotes, Dallas Stars, Calgary Flames. Wow, he's played for a lot of teams. His 11th NHL season, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th, 7th team now. Wow. So basically a trade for a load of journeymen.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of players that have just been kind of bounced around, really. I mean, even looking at Byron Froese here, he hasn't played for one team for one season since the 2010-11 season.
Wow.
So in 11-12, he played for 2, then 2, 2, 3 in 14-15. He played for 4 different teams in 16-17. He's not... So, yeah, I mean... It's almost a kind of just people that are milling around at the bottom that have been traded. There's no kind of headline here, really.
But these are the sort of trades that can make a real difference to a team trying to make a playoff berth. Like for Philadelphia, they're wanting to make some moves to try and either bolster their AHL team as they're trying for their hunt for the playoffs, or they're trying to pick up those extra veteran guys or pick up some guys that can bring a bit more stability to the lineup. Because they're now winning a load of games, and they didn't really give up much in order to get them.
No.
Not in terms of productive players, anyway. So, yeah. Anyway, there was another trade that was announced on the 6th of February. Brian Boyle, the New Jersey Devils forward, was traded to the Nashville Predators in exchange for a 2nd-round pick in 2019. Nashville also picked up Cody McLeod that day as well for a 7th-round pick in 2021, which I think I've mentioned this on a live stream last week, but considering the Predators waived Cody McLeod and the Rangers then picked him up, and they've got a 7th-round pick back for him, that's profit. That's business for you, ladies and gents. But yeah, Brian Boyle, he was, of course, a very inspirational story last year, going through a form of cancer and coming through, I believe it was cancer, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And he managed to come back from that. He said he will never forget the time that he spent with the New Jersey Devils because they were such a welcoming franchise to him during all of his issues that he had. He's in the final season of a 2-year, $5.1 million contract that he signed on the first day of free agency last year. 2017, not 18. He's excited to be part of the team because he knows how good of a team the Nashville Predators are and how good they can be. And the pickup of Boyle and Cody McLeod is primarily in response to losing Austin Watson due to a suspension. We never mentioned that on the stream, on the podcast. Austin Watson, he was suspended at the start of the season for certain charge. I think it was domestic assault, but don't quote me on it. Now he's gone into the substance abuse program, I'm pretty sure. So he's obviously going through a lot of stuff at the moment. So he's not with the team. And Zach Ronaldo is having shoulder surgery. So they've brought in these two players essentially to replace them in their lineup. And the one thing I really like about this, the biggest thing I love about this trade, is the fact that it took a second-round pick to acquire Brian Boyle, who, so far this season, has scored, I believe, before he left, 13 goals. He's got a 13-goal scorer is worthy of a second-round pick, which the New York Rangers are in sell mode again at this trade deadline, and they've got some much more talented, much more productive players that they're looking to shift. And if a 13-goal scorer can pick up a second-round pick, Kevin Hayes, Matt Zuccarello, they're going to pick up a very nice haul for us. So thank you, Brian Boyle, for being worth a second-round pick in this draft. Both of them are probably going to get at least a first-round pick, so I'm very, very happy. So yeah, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I mean, I really like Brian Boyle as a player, and he's obviously very inspirational to everybody. Yeah, he's with his 6 assists as well. He's 19 points in 47 games. So he's just under a point every other game. So he's not gonna light the league up, but you can rely on him to, even if he doesn't get a point, create chances, even if the other players can't convert.
Well, yeah, he's a big guy, and he's known for his fantastic penalty killing. Like, back when he was with the New York Rangers and when I used to watch him with the team, like, he's a brilliant penalty killer.
He does a lot of the things that don't appear on the stat sheet.
Absolutely. Like, that's the best way to describe Brian Boyle. Basically, 95% of the work he puts in, there's no stat to quantify.
Yeah, doesn't appear, yeah.
And finally, with regard to trades, before we move on to the final few sections, and then we answer a few questions from you guys, the LA Kings have made another trade. And the Montreal Canadiens have made another trade, both with each other. The LA Kings have acquired a 4th-round draft pick in exchange for sending Nate Thompson and a 5th-round pick to the Montreal Canadiens. So, the LA Kings have acquired a 4th-round 2019 NHL draft pick, previously acquired from the Calgary Flames, and that's come from the Montreal Canadiens in exchange for forward Nate Thompson and Arizona's 5th-round pick in the 2019 NHL draft, previously acquired from Chicago in exchange for the rights to Dominik Kubalik. Kings Vice President and General Manager Rob Blake announced today. Thompson has appeared in 53 games with the Kings this season, posting 6 points, a +3 rating, and 17 penalty minutes. And he was acquired from the Ottawa Senators last season as part of the Dion Phaneuf trade. He's an Alaskan native. He's appeared in 79 games with the Kings, recording 12 points. And, so that's the trade. There's not really a huge amount to say about this. He's a bottom 6 player. He adds a bit of veteran depth to the team. He's more of a defensive-minded forward. He's not a guy very similar to Brian Boyle, but even less so. He's not the sort of guy that will light the lamp, or is expected to light the lamp. But he provides some help for his team. So the Habs, they're very much looking... This reminds me of a couple of years ago when the Montreal Canadiens acquired a load of bottom 6 veteran guys, and they went for guys that were good role players. Then I think they ended up getting bounced in the 1st or 2nd round by the Rangers. I can't quite remember which year it was. I think it was 2 years ago, 3 years ago maybe. But yeah, I remember they just went out and acquired loads of bottom 6 players, and everyone was like, why aren't you acquiring top 6 talent? You've got the ability to do this. And they're like, nah, we want a 4th liner. Give us a 4th liner. And then ended up doing nothing for them, and they basically all left at the end of the season. So that's the Montreal Canadiens for you. So, do you want to add anything on that before we move over to Brits abroad?
Just again, as kind of you said, very similar to Boyle. I mean, he's not lit the league up in terms of point production, but with 53 games played, he's got a positive plus-minus. He's very good on the defensive end. On
a very awful LA Kings team, we might add.
Yes, there is that.
To be able to go a plus-minus, and I would assume Thompson's the kind of guy to play penalty kill as well. But of course, plus-minus isn't affected on power plays or penalty kills. But the fact that he's managed to go a plus on a team that has sucked for the majority of the year. Fair play to him. He's obviously got some worth. So, let's move on to Brits Abroad. Da-da-ba-ba-da.
Yes.
I need to sneeze, so talk about Kirky.
Okay, so while he goes off and does that, I will talk about Liam Kirk, who, since we were on last week, has played a grand total of 2 games. They played against the Ottawa 67s on Thursday and lost. And then they played on Friday as well, with Kirky recording a 1+1 for 2
They played
points.
the Kingston Frontenacs then, right?
Yes.
And they won in overtime, I believe, right? Yes, I believe they did. I was keeping tabs.
Yeah, was that? Did they win in penalty? Wasn't it penalty shots or something?
Oh, it might have been. You're right. Yeah.
Yes, they won in penalty shots. Yes, because Liam Kirk scored his, if I remember.
No, that was a game before. I'm pretty sure
that was the game before, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, that was it. Yeah, when they lost to Ottawa in the shootout, and he scored his, and then they won this shootout, missed it.
Yeah, exactly.
So he is now on 32 points from 47 games, and for the Peterborough Petes, that puts him like joint 3rd in scoring for Peterborough.
Wow, really?
Yeah,
wow, fair play
with
to him.
His 19 goals. Let me just get the rest of Peterborough back up. Yeah, so Chris Paquette, his line mate, is top with 23.
Right.
And then Nick Robertson with 20, Adam Timlek with 19, and Liam Kirk with 19.
What about in terms of overall points?
Overall points, he is...
Where's he placed on that?
Bear with me, because... 1, 2... He's 7th.
Okay, that's not too bad then. That's all right, considering the stretch that he had that was really poor.
Yeah.
That's not too bad. So, yeah, Liam Kirk's doing all right for himself. We're always happy to hear it. And what about Tomo's DEL adventure?
Tomo's DEL adventure is a bit of an interesting one. So...
Everything's very interesting this week.
The Shawinigan Wild Wings, still bottom.
Hey!
Sorry, Shawinigan, still bottom by 2 points. Not a great week for them. In fact, actually, they haven't played at all this week.
I didn't think they had because I didn't get any flash scores notifications.
Yeah, you haven't had any. I don't know. They must have been on a break, or if they've got their DEL All-Star coming up or something. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
so,
maybe that's a good call. Actually, we're at the right time of the year for it, aren't we?
So yeah, not long now. In fact, they've actually only got another 7 games.
As long as they don't go last in the league, then Tomo's done his job. Maybe we'll see him back at the Steelers. Who knows?
Maybe.
They're looking for a coach. So, let's move on to Fantasy League. And I didn't do very well in Fantasy League this week, I've got to be honest.
No, you didn't, did you?
I got smoked. The problem with me was that first day got absolutely smoked and they kept it for the rest of the week.
Yeah, that
Couldn't
happens.
fight back for the rest of the week. So, the fantasy looks a little bit like this. So, we have a Habsuck beat me by that many points. Max just won his by 1 point. Stanley Elmets beat the Nottingham Yeet. Duncan PlayStations beat the Thunderbirds. Croatian Jets beat the Red Hawks. Chris won again. Portsmouth Pirates beat the Shaw Billionaires because Chris cheats, you know. And the Beanheads beat Trump's fake wife. So, if we go to this week's matchup... Who are we playing? Who am I playing?
I'm playing
I'm
Max.
playing the Duncan PlayStations. Chris is playing Max again. Sorry, Max, you're probably going to lose this one. Shaw Billionaire's playing the Yeet. Trump's fake wife playing Hab Suck. Pyongyang Sucklords playing the Croatian Jets. Stanley Elmets playing the Denver Sports Team. The Toronto Thunderbirds playing the Portsmouth Pirates. And Clarkie's Infants playing the Beanheads. So that is your look. I am 12-6. That's not too bad. I mean,
16.
I've had better. I've had worse. So, you know, what can you do? Clutch player, boys, benched all my team. So, that is a look at the fantasy. We're now on the last call. So if you have any questions that you would like to, for us to answer, whether we've already covered it and you want us to go in a little bit more detail, or whether it's something we haven't talked about, you would like us to quickly discuss for the last 5-10 minutes of the stream, feel free. In terms of the channel this week, I have an idea for a new series that I'm currently writing the first episode of. I'm not going to give you any information about it. I want it to be fresh for everyone. And I think it's quite a good one. It's taking a new spin on something that quite a lot of other people do throughout the hockey world, as it were. So
Okay.
we'll see how that goes. I'm like 75% of the way having written it. Did you see what happened to the? Did you see what happened the last 2 minutes of regulation during the Devils Flames? No.
No.
I guess it was exciting.
Oh
Do
yeah,
you
the
think
Devils,
Storm
the
can make
Devils,
it-
the Devils. No, I know what happened. Only because I looked it up. The Devils were 3 goals down and scored 3 goals in the last 2 minutes
Oh wow.
to
Fair
force
play to them.
overtime and then lost, but they got a point from it.
What do you think about the Arizona Coyotes and especially their injury situation? Well, it sucks for them. This kind of finally seemed like the year that they might actually do something, and they haven't because they've basically had loads of people injured. The funniest thing, Dylan Strome got traded away to the Chicago Blackhawks. He's averaging almost a point per game. Is the 3rd star of the NHL this week. See, it just goes to show you how you leave the Coyotes and move to a team that actually knows how to produce and develop young players. He's also with his junior line mate, Alex DeBrincat. 30 points in 32 games the last time I checked for Dylan Strome since moving to the Chicago Blackhawks. And Schmaltz is out with a season-ending injury. So, I think we know who won that trade this season. We'll see as we move on, but yeah. Do you think the Manchester Storm can make it to the playoffs? Well, if they keep taking stupid penalties, no. If they keep wanting to bench clear brawl every single team that goes to the wrong place on the ice every week, then no. How is Corey Nielsen doing? That's a good question. I don't know. Chris, how is Corey Nielsen doing?
He went to the DL2, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
And he went to... Remind me while I'm looking it up.
While you're doing that...
it was one. It was Lortz. It's a Fuchs, wasn't it? That.
Sure.
They're still in 3rd.
Do you think Vancouver will trade Eriksson before the deadline? I don't think if anybody wants his contract, to be honest. Isn't that the problem with Louis Eriksson? Like, he's regressed over the last however many years. I haven't really heard him tearing up the NHL recently. What are his stats at the moment? Because I believe he got massively overpaid by the Canucks at the time. And everybody said, you've paid way too much for Louis Eriksson, Vancouver. But yeah, I really don't see them trading him because I think it's more of a problem that another team either doesn't want him or his salary cap. So, yeah. Yeah, Chernomaz is back in the DL too, which is good for him. Fair play.
Where did he go in the Del 2?
Article that was released like 5 years ago on a specific player. Can't remember who it was, but there was a quote from Rick Chernomaz from it. And I was like, damn. Oh yeah, that was to do with the Super Series. I'll mention this now actually.
Oh yeah.
The Super Series UK taking place April 20th. If you are interested in helping a few concussion charities and sport charities whilst watching a game of former NHLers and professional hockey players from Canada and the US that are playing all around the world at the moment, do take a look at the Super Series UK, which is taking place at the Fly DSA Arena in Sheffield on April 20th. I'm going. I've been given the chance to go. They invited me there as a media representative, which is really cool. I can't wait to get down there and hopefully get an interview with the likes of Kyle Quincy. That would be awesome. To be able to interview a guy that's played 500 games in the NHL. Like, that opportunity, especially in the UK, doesn't come that often. So, I like to take that and run with it. But yeah, you should definitely get down to the event. Looks like it's going to be awesome. And you might get the chance to meet me, which is either a blessing or a curse.
Why do you want to do that?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's why I said it was a blessing or a curse, you know. Like, you might be like, yeah, finally get to meet Odd Man Rush. You might be like, oh shit, it's that guy again. So, if you want to take the chance, you want to spin the roulette wheel, then I don't think there's actually any actual gambling there, but you know what I mean. Figure of speech.
Yeah, I would be there if I wasn't on holiday.
Of course he would. Turns up to the podcast late, doesn't
That wasn't
update
my
his
fault.
shit before we start, and then isn't there for the event. A true professional, Chris Gadsby.
Stupid me thought 25 minutes would be plenty of time.
Yeah, shame on you. So, with that, there's one last question. I'd like to know what you think about the goaltender situation with the Islanders. I think Grice and Lehner, some professional Chris is. I think Grice and Lehner are like two starters and they play awesome. I am so happy to see that Robin Lehner is bouncing back. I really am. Like, I made a video on him much earlier in the season, and the fact that, like, I made a video on him outlining the struggles that he's gone through. If you haven't watched it and you want to know why this is such a good story, do feel free to go watch that video after this podcast ends. It's quite revealing, the stuff that we go into there. But yeah, I'm really happy to see Robin Lehner's doing so well at the moment. He's a guy that he's obviously struggled with a lot of tough shit over the last few years, and the fact that he's kind of found a home now, and a team that's willing to give him that chance, and he's taken that chance and he's ran with it. Fair play to him. I mean, him and Grice are a big reason why the New York Islanders are at the top of the Metro Division. Fair play to them. Fair play to them. So yeah, I think with that, we will end today's podcast. So next week, we will be back with another podcast if Chris decides to turn up on time.
I'll be there.
For those of you who don't know, it's at 7 PM British time every Monday. We'll talk about more stuff going on. We'll be talking about the Challenge Cup. We're talking about any more trades that take place in the NHL, any more interesting things that take place. We will be talking about them. But yeah, thank you very much for watching,
we'll know the Challenge Cup final, won't we, next...
What's that?
I said we'll know the Challenge Cup final next
That's why
next
I said
week.
We'll talk about the Challenge Cup.
Yeah.
Chris, listen, communication is key. Hey, Chris will be there. Well, I guess we'll find out. We'll find out if I go for an hour and he's still not here. Oh, he did
I'll
not
be
date.
there. Check us both out on Twitter and all the rest of it. And
yeah. So, thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you have enjoyed. Please feel free to like, subscribe, share, or watch some of my other videos. Thank you very much for watching. But for now, goodbye.